Shalom and blessings once again. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being there on the Memory Watch. I know many people are confused about when these broadcasts air. What is the broadcast schedule? What time are you on? What is the time in Israel? What is the time in my country? Whether you're watching from Mexico, Guatemala, or Colombia, remember the little bell icon. Those who haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, we are also broadcasting these programs on the YouTube channel. But the website has a special resource, which I will now describe. Those who are on YouTube and not on the ministry's website, there are special resources that are worth taking, and it would benefit you a lot to take them. Now, I'm going to tell you a little about that. But again, thank you. Thank you for being with us. You encourage us to keep making this kind of material. We keep receiving your comments. We keep getting a lot of questions and inquiries. We can't keep up with answering you all. We have a team here that's responding. Also remember that our week here is a bit different. Yesterday was Shabbat, and here we start from Friday afternoon until Saturday afternoon, which is a day when basically all of Israel comes to a complete stop. So people don't go to work, there's no work, the offices are closed, so that's why we can't respond to your emails very quickly. And also, we have started our physical services again. After almost a year and a month of being virtual, we have now returned to our physical services here in the congregation. We are having more than one service on the same day due to the number of people we can gather in a physical building. The limitation we have due to the corona situation, so we have more than one meeting. And that also puts us even more in the commitment we already had primarily, which was the commitment to the local congregation, the local people, and the ministry. And everything that the Lord has put in our hands here in the congregation in the land of Israel. During this period, as you know, this channel, Voices of Israel, was created to bring Israel to your home, to many of you who are there. On the other hand, the Lord also told us, you are there. I want you to bring Israel into your living room and be a blessing with everything I have given you, to many who will not be able to visit Israel and who cannot visit Israel. So here we are fulfilling what the Lord sent us to do. We are not a television channel. We don't have a large team. We don't have a team of producers, directors, and all the people who know how to handle all this cinematography and cameras. We don't have all that, but we understand, as the scriptures tell us, what was said to David at one point. Do everything that is within your reach. So what we had, which was what we had, a microphone, a camera, a phone, something like that. Let's take what we have and go out. And let's do what the Lord asked us to do. Let's bless the international community and create this bridge of connection between Israel and the nations of the earth. For almost more than 2,000 years, there has been a disconnect between Israel and the nations of the earth from the Spanish-speaking point of view. And that caused, in some places, maybe friction, in some places rejection, in some places hatred, and in some places imitation. And a lot of things that have had a big impact to how nowadays the community refers to issues about Israel. That's why sometimes many leaders and pastors have limited themselves to teaching about Israel. Because it's quite complex, because it's quite difficult, because it's quite debatable, because it brings a lot of discussion, and in some cases it even leads to division. Why? Because it is not understood from the cultural concept of how the biblical events happened, and what was said or how it was shared. It's about being immersed in and comprehending the culture and mindset. Why did they think what they thought, and why did what happened happen at the scene of the events? We've been here for more than 20 years now, and from here we've worked with archaeologists, worked with historians, worked with tour guides. It has given us the capacity for a deeper understanding, and that capacity for a deeper understanding is what we're sharing with you. So thank you for allowing us to come into your homes and try to be a blessing. And we will continue to do so as long as the Lord allows us to manage our time and move forward with everything we have to do. In today's material, in today's episode, episode 4, which is a topic we're going to discuss, is strength. Antonia, the day when the Messiah was taken in the morning to the Praetorium, the place where Pontius Pilate was, the courts of that time, where the sentence of crucifixion was going to be given. Finally, we are seeing the chronological steps of what happened since the triumphant entry on the Mount of Olives. And today we have reached the episode where he is in this place. And the book of John, for example, is giving us a clue that the other gospels did not give us. A lot of people say the gospels are not perfectly aligned with each other, which causes a lot of confusion. That's what some people say, and they also say it's all a lie, because one gospel says one thing, another gospel says something else. It's all a Christian invention. What we are looking at here from a cultural, archaeological, and chronological point of view, as I said, is to understand and put together this puzzle. And each gospel is showing us from its own point of view, its own perspective. And what we do when we bring together the 4 gospels is understand the concept much more clearly. But we must also understand Hebrew culture. When you understand the Hebrew culture, you say, now it's much clearer to me. Now I get it. Why? Because Yeshua lived in this place. Yeshua moved in this place. Yeshua was in this place. Yeshua belonged to this people. He was part of this people. So you have to understand who he truly was in order to understand the culture he was in. And how the things that were celebrated 2,000 years ago. Not exactly as they are celebrated today. Many things have changed compared to what was done 2,000 years ago. So for example, John 18 is telling us that many of the Jews did not enter the Praetorium in the morning because they had to celebrate the Passover meal. Because they had to celebrate the Passover, it tells us that same night. So the question is why? So Luke and Matthew are telling us that Jesus sat at the table with his disciples and took part in the Passover meal? The disciples asked him, Passover is coming, where do you want us to prepare it? And it says that the Lord told them, go to such a place, ask for such a person, and tell him this. When he asks you, tell him this. The passage states that they prepared supper, and when night fell, he sat down with them. And John tells us the Jews did not want to enter the Praetorium in the morning, so they wouldn't be defiled, so they could take part in the Passover supper. So wait a minute, if they're taking Jesus in the morning, what was the supper they took part in? His disciples with the Messiah? Was it the Passover or was it not the Passover? Because we are very limited with time, what we have decided, as I told you in episode 2, is to give you some material from the class or the course as a gift. Rather, the historical Jesus, we have an academy, an online academy, and that online academy has different courses. One of them is the course on the historical Jesus. And there is a class that deals exactly with the last week of the Messiah. In that class, we are discussing this topic. About exactly the topic of the Gospels. How do you put the puzzle together? And that's where we have decided for this week specifically to give you access so that you have unlimited access to this class. It lasts around an hour out of roughly 20.5 hours. So that you can sit at home calmly with the Bible in hand and study what we have there to share with you. So, as I said, due to the time limitation of the video visiting the place in person, we have a class to give you this week. All those who are watching the episode on YouTube are invited to go to the website and enter to watch the online class for free and for a limited time. And those who are on the website simply have to scroll up the page, and below is the class so you can watch it. One of the points that we will also have in today's episode is that at the end, get ready, because at the end we will have a very special time. We will have the priestly blessing in Hebrew, but in worship, sung and recorded in the city of Jerusalem by one of the psalmists from here, from Israel, one of the brothers who lives in the northern area of Galilee. He is a Messianic Jew, and he is also one of the worshipers who has accompanied us on many occasions. And he prepared some material, and we want to share that material with you. It is the priestly prayer sung in the Hebrew language. So this is a special time, and I invite you to let the Holy Spirit do what he needs to do in today's episode. At the end. And another thing I wanted to tell you, and this is an announcement. Actually, on April 8th, this coming day, April 8th, we are going to have, since we can't again because of the time issue, and we would like to share more with you, and I know you would like to share more with us. So we have decided to take our very tight schedule here and make some time. And on Thursday, we usually have a free webinar where we give a webinar to everyone who wants to join and learn more about Israel. So this time, this webinar is going to be a bit different. Why? Because we're going to cover questions and answers. It's going to be a live Q&A session. Questions that you have, we will answer them from here in real time. That is, it's like we're inviting you to this table to have a coffee and talk about relevant topics about Israel at this time. But more specifically, we are going to be discussing the topic of Passover. Many people asked us, what about the Messiah, the one who was crowned in Jerusalem these days? There at the Western Wall, who is he? Who isn't he? We're concerned. Please explain a little to us. Okay, we will do that on April 8th. And a few more questions that you have. You sent us excellent questions. We are working on the answers to send to you and to help clear up any doubts. So stay tuned. If you aren't subscribed, please subscribe. Also remember that on Wednesday, we have a time of worship. 24 hours where a team is praying on the Mount of Olives. We send the request that you send us to this team, which rotates every 2 hours. And especially, they are praying for the nations of the world for 24 hours on the Mount of Olives. So go to the website, there's a section that says prayer request, fill out the form, and from here we pray specifically from Jerusalem. We pray specifically for each request that you send us. So without further ado, let's go straight to today's video to see directly on site at the Antonia Fortress what we have today, what we can learn from today. Remember, tomorrow we have a new episode number 5, and we'll have our conclusion in episode number 6, in an incredible place that you can't miss. So without further ado, thank you very, very, very much. And once again, we love you from the land of the Bible. And hopefully, at some point we can see each other face to face and give each other a real hug, not just a virtual one. Until then, in the meantime, here we are to be your feet, as we always say, your hands in the land of Israel. So let's watch today's episode right at the place where it happened. I'm standing at one of the windows, and maybe this very spot, open like this, maybe not these bars, maybe not this exact window, but maybe in this very place. There were eyes that 2,000 years ago were looking at something different from what we're seeing now, because this building came much later. But here there were eyes that looked toward the temple, because the temple of Herod was there. I am standing exactly where what is known as the Antonia Fortress was located. This is where the Romans had their court jurisdiction. This is where they sat. For example, Pontius Pilate, the one who presided over the trial during the last week of the Messiah, during the last week of Jesus. There are many details regarding Pontius Pilate from a historical point of view. For example, the New Testament is the only place where Pontius Pilate is mentioned. There is no historical book that can state with 100% certainty that Pontius Pilate was a real person. Therefore, many historians and many Jews today say that it was a Christian legend to invent a character called Pontius Pilate. But the reality is that the scriptures say if you do not speak, then the stones will bear witness of me. And that's what happened in the rise of the modern state of Israel in the year 1948. When Israel opens its doors to different archaeologists from different parts of the world, they start to gather in this place and begin to tour, to investigate, to explore the land, and they start discovering new things, things that have changed, or rather have brought more light to what was already known regarding history, and some things have been confirmed. For example, exactly this subject of Pontius Pilate. Why? Because until before 1948, he was simply a figure of debate, and he only appeared in the New Testament and in the scriptures. Many people and historians were skeptical, but as I said, the stones will testify on my behalf. That's what happened in Caesarea Maritima, a place very close to the city of Tel Aviv. What had happened? 2,000 years ago, the Jews had Herod's temple, which he had built for them so they would have a place to worship. But we must not forget that Herod served the Roman people. He was a king of Rome. He belonged to Judea. He had his jurisdiction here, but he had to answer to Rome. Everything that happened, everything that took place here in this area, both successes and failures, all had to be reported to their authorities in Rome. Therefore, a time of revolution began here, where many people... What happened was that people began to demand things not only from those who succeeded Herodes the Great, but also from those who were born later, those Herodes who came after Herodes the Great. Let's remember that we have Agrippa, Antipas, and a series of Herodes who appear after the death of Herodes the Great. What happened is that the people began to pressure the king. And what the king had to do was give the people what they wanted. Because they would say to him, wait a moment, even though we are occupying the territory of Judea, the territory is ours, it belongs to us. We fought for it and we won it legitimately. So why do the Jews have the best part? Why did they keep this mountain? And why do they have a place for their God where they can worship? We also want a place, and that was the pressure put on by the Romans and Herod. He decided to build different cities, but one of the most important cities was Caesarea Maritima, dedicated to the great Caesar, the one who was in Rome. That city had a hippodrome, it had a praetorium, it had a place where people would go there and could watch theater shows and many other things, where they could have fun according to the culture that the Romans demanded, that they wanted to have. And it was there, recently, after the establishment of the State of Israel in 48, where a rock was discovered. Accidentally, the archaeologists began their search. They turned over a rock, and that rock had an inscription, and that inscription determines or writes or affirms. Or is it the testimony to this day that there was a praetorium there, which is a praetorium, a courthouse, a tribunal, as we know it today. That place had been dedicated, offered to Pilatus, the Roman procurator who lived in the city of Jerusalem. That was what was written on that rock. Since that was written on that rock, then it is taken as a given. And it's an incredible statement that archaeology cannot deny and history cannot deny, because that was written 2,000 years ago. And that was a testimony that the New Testament had no flaws and had no errors or any additions. Pontius Pilate existed. Let's read what the scriptures tell us here. In the book of Luke, chapter 23, it says the following: Then the whole crowd of them got up and took Jesus to Pilate, and they began to accuse him, saying, "We have found this man perverting the nation, and that he forbids paying taxes to Caesar, saying that he himself is the Christ, a king." Pilate then asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" In response he said, "You say so." And Pilate said to the chief priests and the people, "I find no fault in this man." But they insisted, saying, "He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea, beginning from Galilee to here." Then Pilate, hearing Galilee mentioned, asked if the man was a Galilean. And when he learned that he was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. Herod, seeing Jesus, was very glad, for he had long desired to see him, because he had heard many things about him and hoped to see him perform some sign. And he asked him many questions, but he answered him nothing, and the chief priests and the scribes stood by, accusing him vehemently. Then Herod, with his soldiers, treated him with contempt and mocked him, dressing him in a splendid robe. And he sent him back to Pilate. That is, he brought Jesus back to this very place where we are today. And Pilate and Herod became friends that day, for before this they had been enemies with each other. Then Pilate, calling together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, said to them, "You have brought this man to me as one who stirs up the people. But having examined him in your presence, I have found no fault in this man concerning those things of which you accuse him. And neither did Herod, for I sent you to him, and indeed, nothing deserving death has been done by this man. I will therefore release him after punishing him, for I am required to release one to you." But at every feast the whole crowd cried out together, saying, "Away with this man, and release Barabbas to us." He had been thrown into prison for insurrection in the city and for murder. Pilate spoke to them again, wanting to release Jesus, but they shouted back, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" He said to them a third time, "Why, what evil has this man done? I have found no crime deserving death in him, therefore I will punish him and release him." But they insisted with loud voices, demanding that he be crucified, and their voices, along with those of the chief priests, prevailed. Then Pilate sentenced that what they asked should be done, and he released the one who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, the one they had asked for, and he handed over Yeshua to their will. Here is where the sentence was pronounced. Here is the place where Yeshua was on one side, Barabbas on the other. Pontius Pilate had made the decision, and in fact, on several occasions as we read here, he insisted on setting him free. He said, "I will beat him, I will punish him, but I will set him free." But the people did not want to set him free. They didn't want to let Jesus, the Messiah, keep wandering, walking, going around the city of Jerusalem. We see that in his last days he had done incredible things, but on the other hand, we know that it was God's will. We know that he had already declared it, he had already said it. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he had already said it when those soldiers came and took him. He had already told his disciples in private before. He had said, "It is the hour. The Son of Man is going to be scourged, is going to be beaten, is going to be put to shame, but it is necessary for this to happen." So here in this place, we remember that trial which resulted in the crucifixion. This very place is known as the place of the Placagio, the place where the Messiah's garments are removed. The soldiers cast lots for it and take him along the road known today as the Via Dolorosa, the place where he would finally arrive at the site of Golgotha, the place where they would crucify the Messiah. We're going to walk around this place a little so you can see what it's about. What's here at this site today? And then we'll continue. We're going to keep walking through the place where the Messiah was already beginning his final steps toward death, which was undoubtedly imminent. Here on that day, more than 2,000 years ago, the only things you could probably hear were nerves, tension, and screams. It's important to understand that the Jewish people couldn't take anyone's life. They couldn't kill anyone, they could judge, they could put a troublemaker in jail. That's what they said, that Jesus was for them a troublemaker. He was someone who urged people to break the law of the Sabbath, which we understand that under no circumstances did he do. Because we see that in the scriptures there are 5 laws and the Messiah fulfilled each one of them. He never broke the Sabbath. But the rabbinic interpretation of that time made it seem as if the Messiah had broken it. And in fact, sadly, there is a lot of rabbinic interpretation today, with many people thinking and believing that the Messiah broke the law. And there are others who sadly fall under a order or under a line of rabbinic tradition, which was the one the Messiah, the one Yeshua, the one Jesus. He fought against that line more than 2,000 years ago so that it would disappear completely. But sadly, to this day, it still continues. That spirit of religion, the one that sends the Messiah to the cross, is the same spirit that to this day keeps disturbing and keeps wandering around different parts of the world. It has come out from here, from the city of Jerusalem, and has gone to different places. We have to eradicate it completely and remove it from our lives and understand what the Messiah truly wanted to show us and what is the light that he wanted to bring to our days in the time that we are living in. Today, we are going to keep exploring this place. I want to tell you a little bit about what is here nowadays. And then we will meet at the exit to continue on to our next episode, to continue on our way to Golgotha. So come with me. Let's take a walk around this place a couple of times. Before we continue exploring this place where we just read the scriptures, I would like you, together with us, to go back a few thousand years to try to figure out exactly where this fortress was located. For that, we need to look at some images that will help us have a clearer and more accurate interpretation. The Antonia Fortress, or the Tower of Antonios, as some also call it, was a military garrison built by Herod the Great in the city of Jerusalem during the time of the ancient Roman Empire. It was built on the site of the Hasmonean Square and was named in honor of Mark Antony. He was a strong political ally when Herod came to the throne. The fortress was built in the area at the eastern end of the second wall, and it was located in the northwest of the city, close to the Temple of Herod and facing the Pool of Bethesda. It is believed that the Praetorium of the city of Jerusalem operated in an area within the Antonia Fortress, which is why the Praetorium was the place where the trial of Jesus before Pontius Pilate took place during the First Jewish-Roman War. The fortress was the barracks for part of the Roman garrison of Jerusalem, and the Romans also guarded the high priest's garments inside this same fortress. It was destroyed in the year 70 after Christ by the Roman army itself during the siege of the city of Jerusalem. Under the leadership of Titus, he captured the fortress as a sort of prelude to the attack on Herod's temple complex. Alright, and so we come to the end of this episode about the Antonia Fortress. We will continue in a new episode, and in our next episode, we are going to Golgotha, the place where the Messiah was crucified. Here we have already seen that this was the place where he was judged, where the soldiers also cast lots. With his clothing, his garments, they played with him, they did all kinds of things, just as he had said in the past, that it had to happen, that it had to take place. Although it is a sad moment in the story of the Savior. But it is a moment that had to happen. It is a moment that had to take place so that he could finally redeem his people completely. Don't miss our next episode. We will continue exploring the city of Jerusalem during the last week of the Messiah, here in this place, in the land of the Bible. From here, I greet you and wish you a good time. And as we say, Shalom you Brajot, bye-bye.